The grand chamber of the Galactic Council sparkled like a field of stars, its crystal walls reflecting the light of 1,000 different species' home suns. Kizari, their scales still gleaming with youth's iridescence, tried to maintain their composure while recording the proceedings. It was their first day as a junior diplomatic aide, and already they were witnessing something extraordinary. The mighty Centauri warriors, their biomechanical armor towering 3 meters high, had just fallen silent, all because of a single word: human. "What do you mean humans have settled there?" General Vrax's voice, usually thunderous enough to shake the chamber's crystal walls, had dropped to something almost like a whisper. The Epsilon system was unclaimed. The human representative, a surprisingly small figure named Rebecca Martinez, didn't even look up from her datapad. "We established a mining colony 6 standard months ago. 15,000 settlers. Nothing major." She glanced up, her expression mild. "Is there a problem?" Kizari watched in fascination as the mighty General Vrax, conqueror of the Perseus arm, actually took a step back. "No," he said quickly. Too quickly. "No problem. The Centauri Empire withdraws its claim to the Epsilon system. Our navigational charts must have been outdated." The rest of the council session passed in a blur of trade agreements and border disputes, but Kizari couldn't stop thinking about that moment. They had studied the humans' brief history since joining the galactic community. A young species, barely Type 1, with only a handful of colony worlds. Yet they had just watched the most aggressive military power in the sector back down at the mere mention of their presence. After the session, Kizari found their supervisor, Elder Diplomat Nix, in the archive chamber. The ancient arthropoid was sorting through quantum memory crystals with their lower arms, while their upper ones gestured in complex patterns of thought. "Elder Nix," Kizari began, their voice carefully modulated to show proper respect. "I have a question about the humans." All 4 of Nix's arms froze mid-motion. "Dangerous subject, young one." "But why? They're not even a major power. Their technology is centuries behind the Centauri. Their military is tiny compared to the Rigelian Confederation, and they've never even fought a major interstellar war. So why did General Vrax stop?" Nix's voice carried the full weight of their 3 centuries of diplomatic experience. "Some questions are better left unasked, especially about Dr. Amanda Mitchell and the Proxima Initiative." "Dr. Mitchell? The Proxima Initiative? I don't understand. Those aren't even in our historical database." Nix's primary eyes fixed on Kizari while their secondary ones darted around the chamber, checking for observers. "Listen carefully, young one. There's a reason we don't have wars anymore. There's a reason the great powers all play nice now. And it has nothing to do with treaties or trade agreements or cultural exchange programs." "What is the reason?" "The humans." Nix's forelimbs trembled slightly. "Or more specifically, what happened to the last species that thought they could take something from the humans by force?" What happened to them?" "Ask the Varkath, if you can find any." Nix turned away, their voice growing distant. "They used to rule 30 star systems. Now they have 1. And they thank the humans every day for letting them keep that much." Zeri felt a chill run through their scales. They had one more question, but Nix was already moving away, their shell clicking against the crystal floor. With a quick decision that would change their life forever, Kizari slipped into the restricted archive section. They had to know, had to understand. The answer was in here somewhere. The reason why the most powerful species in the galaxy lived in fear of a civilization that had only recently mastered faster than light travel. The reason they never challenged the humans. The restricted wing of the Galactic Archives existed in a perpetual twilight, illuminated only by the soft purple glow of quantum-locked data crystals. Kizari's access card shouldn't have worked here. Junior diplomatic aides weren't cleared for this level. But they had discovered that the system had a 3-second delay during shift changes, and now here they were, among the galaxy's darkest secrets. Their claws clicked softly against the crystal floor as they moved between towering stacks of historical records. The air felt heavy, as if the weight of hidden knowledge pressed down on them. Section after section passed. The Regellian war crimes, the lost colony of Novaterra, the crystalline plague. Then they found it. A single data crystal, glowing a deep crimson. The highest level of classification. The label reads simply, Proxima Incident, Final Report. Terry's hands trembled as they inserted the crystal into their reader. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a military document stamped with the seal of the Varkath Empire. The date made their scales ripple. Just 20 years ago, when the Varkath had been at the height of their power. Operation Swift Victory, the text began. Target, Human Mining Colony PCX 187. Estimated population, 8,000. Military presence, none. Expected resistance, minimal. Duration of operation, estimated 6 hours. The next entry was dated just 3 days later. The text was fragmented, as if written in haste. They were ready for us. Somehow, they were ready. Mining lasers reconfigured to penetrate our strongest shields. Industrial machinery turned into weapons we've never seen before. Lost contact with the first wave within minutes. Supreme Commander demands immediate reinforcements. The humans, they're not fighting like any species we've encountered. They're not following any known military doctrine. Every time we adapt, they change tactics. Every time we counter a weapon, they create 2 more. Kazari found attached footage from the Varkath fleet's combat recorders. The images made their blood run cold. Mining ships performing maneuvers that should have torn them apart, civilian vessels modified with impossible weapons, and through it all, the calm voice of someone called Lieutenant James Cooper issuing orders. Echo Team, those plasma drills work great on their engine cores. Keep it up. Delta Squad, the mineral separators make perfect rail guns, just like we practiced. Dr. Mitchell, how's that shield bypass coming? A female voice responded, cool and precise. Another 5 minutes. Their adaptive technology is fascinating. Shame we have to break it. The next report was from the Varkath Supreme Commander himself, his usually immaculate royal seal crook and hastily applied. They let us land ground forces. Stars help me. They let us. The colony was a trap. Every building is a fortress. Every civilian a warrior. They're using our own ships against us now. Dr. Mitchell somehow reversed our neural controls. Half the fleet has gone dark. The humans. They're not just fighting us. They're taking us apart, studying us, learning how we work, and then they're improving on it. The final entry was different. It wasn't a military report or combat footage. It was a personal log from someone named Ambassador William Harrison, dated 1 week later. The Varkath surrender was unconditional, but that's not the end of the story. It's just the beginning. We've already started sending medical aid to their worlds. Dr. Mitchell's team is helping them rebuild, teaching them how to use their technology more efficiently. Some think we're crazy for helping an enemy who just tried to enslave us. But that's not the human way. We don't just win wars. We win peace. Kazari sat in the darkness for a long time, processing what they'd learned. The Varkath had been the galaxy's ultimate warriors, their empire built on 15 centuries of unbroken military victory. And humanity had dismantled them in 3 days. Not with superior technology, not with greater numbers, but with something far more dangerous, the ability to take any situation, any technology, any weapon, and make it better. Make it human. The crystal's glow faded as it powered down, leaving Kizeri alone with a chilling thought. They still hadn't found Dr. Mitchell's personal records, and something told them that's where the real story lay. Lieutenant James Cooper's home sat on the edge of New Seattle's agricultural district, its weathered solar panels and overgrown garden speaking of simple retirement. Kizeri found it hard to believe that this modest dwelling housed one of the key figures from the Proxima incident. The old soldier who answered the door bore little resemblance to the fierce warrior from the archive footage. His hair had gone white, his face lined with age, but his eyes, those were the same, sharp, watchful, analyzing. "Well," Cooper said, looking down at Kizeri, "first time I've had a Centaurian diplomat on my porch. Come to ask about Proxima, haven't you?" Inside, Cooper's home was filled with unexpected items. Mining equipment turned into art pieces. Fragments of Varkath technology repurposed into household tools. Even his coffee maker appeared to be built from modified alien parts. "Old habits," he explained, catching Kizeri's gaze. "Humans don't like to waste anything." "Coffee?" "Yes, thank you." Kizeri settled their bulk carefully onto a reinforced chair. "The archives show you were there from the beginning." Cooper nodded, his movements deliberate as he poured 2 cups. "I was the colony's security chief, though back then that mostly meant making sure the mining robots stayed in their designated areas." He smiled. "Funny how things change. The reports say you had no military forces, no weapons. How did you hold off an empire?" Cooper handed them a cup. "Simple. We're human. Adaptation isn't just something we do. It's who we are. Every tool is a weapon if you hold it right. Every civilian is a soldier if you push them far enough." He walked to a wall display, touching a control. A hologram sprang to life, showing the colony as it had been. "We had 3 hours warning. Just 3 hours between detecting their fleet and first contact. You know what the colony did in those 3 hours?" Kizeri's scales shifted in curiosity. "Fight. No, we innovated. Sarah in maintenance figured out how to reverse engineer their shield frequencies using our mining scanners. Billy Chen in agriculture realized our atmospheric processors could generate electromagnetic pulses. And Dr. Mitchell." He paused, a complex expression crossing his face. "Well, she changed everything." The hologram shifted, showing colony workers transforming their equipment. Industrial lasers became defense turrets. Cargo haulers became armored transports. Mining droids became combat units. The Varkath expected surrender, or maybe some token resistance. Cooper continued. Instead, they got 8,000 humans working together, each one contributing their own ideas, their own innovations. We had engineers turning mining charts into battle plans, teachers programming combat algorithms, kids spotting patterns in enemy communications that our computers missed. He set down his coffee, his expression distant. "You have to understand. Humans don't think like other species. We don't see things as they are. We see things as they could be. A mining laser, that's just a weapon waiting to happen. A maintenance bot, that's a potential soldier. Everything has multiple uses if you're creative enough." "But the casualties," Kizeri began. Cooper's face hardened. 0. We lost 0 civilians, because that was the first thing we agreed on. Everyone lives, or we all die trying. Do you know how many Varkath we lost? The records don't say. Also 0. Cooper's voice softened. We disabled their ships, incapacitated their troops, developed non-lethal weapons on the fly, because that was the second thing we agreed on. We wouldn't become monsters to beat monsters. He stood, moving to a window that overlooked the colony's sprawling farms. The Varkath never understood what they were really fighting. They thought they were fighting miners and engineers and civilians, but they were fighting humans. And humans, He turned back to Kizeri, those sharp eyes now intense. Humans don't just adapt to survive. We adapt to win. And then, because we're human, we help our enemies adapt too. Kizeri's recording crystal was nearly full, but they had one last question. And Dr. Mitchell, what was her role in all this? Cooper's expression changed again, this time to something like awe. She showed us what humanity could really do when we stopped fighting like soldiers and started fighting like scientists. The holographic playback room in the Galactic archives was designed to handle any format from any species. Right now, it was reconstructing the most detailed record of the Proxima incident ever assembled. Kizeri watched as the three-dimensional space filled with images of battle. Time index, first contact, plus 1 hour, the archive's neutral voice announced. The first Varkath wave emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 50 warships against a single mining colony. Their communication channels broadcast in all languages. Surrender immediately. Resistance is. The message cut off as the first mining laser fired. That's not possible, Kizeri whispered, checking the readings. The colony's industrial mining laser had been modified to match the exact frequency of the Varkath shields. The beam cut through their flagship like paper. Head engineer Michael Roberts' voice crackled through the recording. Frequency match confirmed. All teams, sync your lasers to these settings. Sarah, your shield analysis was perfect. The next hours were chaos. The Varkath adapted, changing their shield frequencies, only to find the humans had already predicted the changes. They launched fighters, only to have them disabled by repurposed atmospheric processors to generating targeted EMP bursts. Time index, plus 6 hours. Dr. Amanda Mitchell appeared in the footage, working at a hastily assembled console. The neural network analysis is complete, she announced, her voice steady despite the explosions around her. Their ships are linked. Get me access to one, and I can access them all. How long? Lieutenant Cooper's voice asked. Give me 3 minutes and a distraction. The footage showed what happened next. The colony's children, the ones who'd been playing virtual reality games just days before, had reprogrammed the maintenance drones. Hundreds of small, agile machines swarmed the Varkath ships, not attacking, just distracting. 2 minutes and 45 seconds later, half the Varkath fleet went dark. Time index, plus 12 hours. The Varkath launched their ground forces, presumably thinking their advanced combat armor would give them the advantage. They never saw the mining charges coming, modified by the colony's geology team to create localized gravity distortions. Time index, plus 24 hours. The footage showed Dr. Mitchell again, this time presenting to the colony's defense council. Their technology isn't just advanced, she explained, gestures animated. It's predictable. They've used the same design philosophy for centuries. Once you understand the base pattern, the hologram shifted to show Varkath weapons turning against their users, ship systems rebooting with human control codes, and communication networks broadcasting colony messages. Time index, plus 36 hours. The Varkath brought in their elite forces. The colony responded with mining ships retrofitted with improvised FTL rams, not to destroy, but to disable. Each strike precisely calculated to minimize casualties while maximizing impact. Time index, plus 48 hours. Colonel Jessica Hayes' voice cut through the chaos. Pattern recognition complete. Dr. Mitchell's analysis shows they're running out of standard responses. Get ready for something desperate. She was right. The Varkath launched their final attack with everything they had left. It should have been overwhelming. Instead, it met the full force of human innovation. The colony's power plant, modified under Dr. Mitchell's direction, generated a field that simply turned everything off. Ships, weapons, even the vaunted Varkath battle armor. all dead in space. Time index, plus 72 hours. The final recording was from the colony's main communication channel, broadcast on all frequencies. Lieutenant Cooper's voice, tired but firm. To all Varkath forces, your ships are disabled. Your troops are stranded. But you're all still alive, because that was our choice. Now let's talk about tomorrow. Kizari stopped the playback, their scales shimmering with emotion. The archive's lights came up slowly, revealing the room's other occupant, a human observer they hadn't noticed before. Impressive, isn't it? The woman said, stepping forward. I'm Dr. Mitchell's daughter, Rachel. And if you think that was something, wait until you learn what we didn't show on the recordings. The reformed Varkath archive was nothing like the sterile Galactic repository. Located in their capital city's heart, it was a living museum of their transformation. Rachel Mitchell led Kizari through halls lined with artifacts. Modified mining equipment, reprogrammed battle armor, and most surprisingly, art created from disabled weapons. My mother always said that understanding wasn't just about knowledge, Rachel explained, her steps echoing on the polished floor. It was about evolution, both theirs and ours. They reached a sealed room deep within the archive. Rachel placed her hand on a scanner, and the door whispered open. Inside, a single data terminal glowed softly. These are my mother's personal logs from the incident, Rachel said. She asked that they be kept here, among the people she came to respect. The first entry appeared, dated 1 day before the invasion. Initial analysis complete. The Varkath aren't just warriors. They're products of their own history. Every technology, every strategy, every cultural norm is built on a single principle: strength through uniformity. It's their greatest power and their critical weakness. Kizari watched as more entries scrolled past. Hour 6. Their shield technology is beautiful. Layers of predictable patterns, like a mathematical poem. They've spent centuries perfecting it, never realizing that perfection is just another word for predictability. Sarah's mining laser modifications worked better than expected. They can't comprehend why. Their minds don't work that way. Yet. Hour 12. Lieutenant Cooper's improvised tactics are driving them mad. They're looking for the pattern, the grand strategy. They don't understand that our pattern is having no pattern. Every colonist fighting their own way, using their own ideas. Unity without uniformity, a concept their hierarchy can't process. Hour 24. The children's drone programming was the breakthrough. The Varkath see children as weak to be protected. The idea of them being active participants, contributing their gaming skills to battle strategies. It's shattering their cultural assumptions. This isn't just a battle anymore. It's a lesson. Then came the entry that made Kizari's scales ripple. Hour 36. We could end this now. The neural network is compromised. Their entire fleet could be shut down with a single command. But that's not the goal. The Varkath need to learn, not just lose. Each defeat is calculated. Each success we allow them is measured. We're not breaking their technology. We're rebuilding their understanding. Rachel touched the terminal, bringing up a complex diagram. This was the Mitchell Protocol, not just a battle plan, a complete cultural transformation strategy. Every weapon we developed had two purposes: to defend us and to teach them. The logs continued. Hour 48. They're learning. Their attacks are becoming less rigid, more creative. They're starting to question their own assumptions. Colonel Hayes noticed it first. They're beginning to fight like individuals rather than a hive. Progress. Hour 60. The final phase is ready. The power plant modifications will end the battle, but the real work is just beginning. Ambassador Harrison's team is prepared for the peace. We'll show them how to use their own technology more efficiently, how to think more flexibly. Not because we have to, but because that's what humans do. We build, even after victory. The final entry was different, written months later. The Varkath asked me today why we didn't simply destroy them when we had the chance. I showed them the Children's Art Gallery, where human and Varkath kids now draw together. I showed them the research labs, where our scientists work side by side. Because this, I told them, is true victory. Not conquest, but conversion. Not destruction, but evolution. Rachel switched off the terminal. My mother passed away last year. The Varkath declared a month of mourning. Their children still learn her name alongside their greatest teachers. Tazeri found their voice. She didn't just beat them. She changed them. No, Rachel corrected gently. She showed them how to change themselves. That's the real reason nobody challenges humans. Not because of our weapons or tactics, but because we don't just win battles. We transform worlds. And we do it not through force, but through understanding. The Varkath Memorial Garden stretched across what had once been their military command center, where weapon platforms once stood. Crystal trees now reached toward the twin suns. Tazeri walked these paths with Ambassador William Harrison, now in his 80th year, but still sharp as a blade. Everyone gets the war part wrong, Harrison said, pausing to touch a memorial stone. They focus on how we won the battle. But that was just the beginning. The real challenge, the real victory, came after. They reached a central plaza where a holographic display showed the transformation of Varkath society over the past 2 decades. Cities once built for war now housed universities. Factories that had produced weapons now created medical equipment. The day after the surrender, Harrison continued, I called an emergency meeting. Not with our military, but with our teachers, doctors, engineers, and artists. The easy part is done, I told them. Now we have to prove why we deserve to win. The ambassador's personal logs materialized in the air before them, part of the living memorial. Day 1 after victory, the Varkath expected execution or enslavement. Instead, we sent medical teams. Dr. Emily Chen leading the charge, treating their wounded with technologies we developed during the fight. Their commanders couldn't comprehend it. Why help us? They asked. Because that's what humans do, Emily told them. We fix things. Week 1. Established the first joint research facility. Dr. Mitchell's team working alongside Varkath engineers, showing them how their own technology could work better. The looks on their faces when they realized we'd only used a fraction of our potential during the battle. Priceless. Month 1. Opened the first combined school. Varkath children learning alongside human kids. They're natural scientists when you get past the warrior programming. Today, a young Varkath girl improved one of our mining algorithms. Her father, a former fleet commander, cried with pride. Harrison led Kazari to a quiet garden where a single stone bench sat beneath a canopy of bioluminescent flowers. Another human Varkath collaboration. The turning point came 3 months after the surrender, he said, settling onto the bench. A Varkath elder asked me something no one had ever asked. Why didn't you make us your slaves? You had the power. The ambassador's eyes grew distant with memory. I showed him a history book, Earth's history, all our wars, our mistakes, our lessons learned. Because we've been where you are, I told him. We've had our ages of empire, our dreams of conquest. And we learned, through blood and fire, that true power isn't about control. It's about creation. More log entries shimmered in the air. 6 months. The first Varkath students graduated from our technical program. They've already started improving our designs. Dr. Mitchell was right. They're not just learning, they're evolving. Today, they proposed a new shield technology that could revolutionize space travel. 1 year. Open trade routes to former Varkath colonies. Not as conquerors, but as partners. The same ships that once carried weapons now transport medical supplies, educational materials, and cultural exchange teams. 5 years. The Varkath High Council voted to transform their warrior academies into research centers. The vote was unanimous. Their chief scholar, once their supreme military commander, said something remarkable. The humans didn't defeat us. They upgraded us. Harrison stood, his movement careful but dignified. You want to know why no one challenges humans? It's not because we're unbeatable in battle. It's because we make victory unnecessary. We don't want subjects or slaves. We want partners, equals, fellow explorers in the great unknown. Kizari looked around the garden, seeing the living proof of his words. Varkath and human children played together among the crystal trees. Scientists of both species collaborated in open-air laboratories. Artists merged their styles to create works that could never have existed before. The greatest weapon humanity ever created, Harrison said softly, was our capacity to turn enemies into family. That's what Dr. Mitchell really gave us. Not a way to win wars, but a way to make them obsolete. The sun was setting now, casting long shadows through the crystal trees. In their dancing light, Kizari finally understood. The humans hadn't just changed the Varkath. They'd changed the very meaning of victory. The facility beneath the Rocky Mountains had no official name, no public records, and according to every database Kizari had accessed, no existence at all. Yet here they were, following General Thomas Reynolds through security checkpoints that made the Galactic Council's defenses look like children's toys. You've seen what we did, Reynolds said, his voice echoing in the steel corridors. Now I'll show you what we chose not to do. The general's silver hair and weathered face spoke of decades of service, but his eyes held something deeper, a weight that made Kizari's scales ripple with unease. During the Proxima incident, Reynolds continued, I was Dr. Mitchell's military liaison, her partner in creating what we called the options we pray we never need. They entered a vast chamber dominated by a holographic display system far more advanced than anything Kizari had seen before. Reynolds placed his hand on a control panel, and a room came alive with light. Simulation 1, he announced. Operation Blacklight. The display showed a Varkath warship, perfect in every detail. Then it showed what Dr. Mitchell had discovered about their neural network technology. Not just how to disable it, but how to rewrite it. How to turn their entire fleet against itself in seconds. We could have done this in the first hour, Reynolds said quietly. Total victory. No resistance possible. Why didn't you? Because it would have been too easy, too clean, too much like becoming what we were fighting. He changed the display. Simulation 2, solar resonance. This time, the image showed how a modified mining laser could have triggered a chain reaction in the Varkath ship's power cores. One shot, their entire fleet reduced to atoms. Dr. Mitchell developed these options not because we needed them, Reynolds explained, but because she believed we needed to choose not to use them. Each one was a test, not of our power, but of our humanity. The simulations continued, each more devastating than the last. Ways to turn their own atmosphere against them. Methods to disable their genetic advantages. Techniques to collapse their entire military infrastructure in minutes. The final option. Reynolds' voice grew even quieter. What Dr. Mitchell called the line we never cross. The display showed a simple sequence of numbers, a code that could have transformed every piece of Varkath technology into an instrument of their own destruction. Not just their military. Everything. We had this ready on day 1, Reynolds said. Total victory. The end of the Varkath as a species. Dr. Mitchell cried when she realized it was possible. Then she showed us something even more important. He changed the display one last time. Now it showed what they had actually done. The careful disable and teach strategy. The measured responses. The calculated opportunities for the Varkath to learn and grow. This was the hardest option, Reynolds continued, the one that required the most effort, the most restraint, the most faith in our own humanity. We didn't just have to win. We had to win right. Kizari found their voice. The other species. Do they know about these options? A few suspect. That's why the Centauri backed down today. Not because they fear what we might do, but because they know what we choose not to do. Every time we show restraint, every time we choose the harder path, we prove again why we can be trusted with the power we have. Reynolds led them back through the facility's winding corridors. Dr. Mitchell left one last message before she died. Would you like to hear it? At Kizari's nod, he activated a final display. Dr. Mitchell's face appeared, older than in the earlier records, but with the same intense eyes. If you're seeing this, she said, you're wondering about the real reason no one challenges humanity. It's not our weapons or our technology, or even our adaptability. It's our choices. We're not powerful because we can end civilizations. We're powerful because we choose not to. Remember that, when the next crisis comes, the greatest strength isn't in the options you have. It's in the options you choose not to take. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Kizari concluded their report. The crystal walls that had once reflected 1,000 alien suns now seemed to hold their light in anticipation. Even the mighty Centauri warriors stood motionless, their biomechanical armor quiet for once. The reason we never challenge the humans, Kizari's voice carried through the silence, is not what any of us thought. We've been asking the wrong question all along. The question isn't why we fear them. It's why we don't need to. Major Sophia Anderson, Earth's new military attaché, stood calmly at the center of the chamber. Unlike the other representatives, she wore a simple dress uniform with only a single medal, the Mitchell Peace Cross. Humanity, Kizari continued, has been called many things: warriors, innovators, survivors. But these labels missed the truth. Through my investigation, I've discovered what makes humans truly unique in the galaxy. The holographic display activated, showing scenes from their investigation. The mining colony's transformation, Dr. Mitchell's logs, the memorial gardens, the hidden facility. They could have conquered us all, not just the Varkath. Every species in this chamber. Dr. Mitchell's protocols could have been modified for any of our technologies. Their ability to adapt, to innovate, to transform any tool into a weapon. It makes them unbeatable in ways we never imagined. The chamber erupted in worried murmurs, but Kizari raised their voice slightly. But that's not what makes them special. What makes them special is that they know this, and choose a different path. Major Anderson stepped forward. Every child on Earth learns about the Proxima incident, not as a story of victory, but as a lesson in responsibility. We could have had an empire. Instead, we chose to have neighbors. Kizari nodded. In my research, I found something remarkable. Every time humans have been challenged, they've responded with both less and more force than expected. Less destruction, more understanding. Less conquest, more collaboration. They don't just beat their enemies. They transform them into friends. The display showed new images, human and Varkath children in school together, joint scientific projects, cultural exchanges, mixed species families. The Varkath were not defeated, Kizari explained. They were elevated. Their warrior culture wasn't destroyed. It evolved. Their strength wasn't broken. It was redirected. And this pattern, this Mitchell Protocol, has become the foundation of human diplomatic policy. Major Anderson smiled slightly. We remember being alone in the universe. We remember our own wars, our own struggles to grow beyond conflict. When we found other species, we promised ourselves we'd be the neighbors we wished we had during our own development. And that, Kizari concluded, is the real reason we never challenge the humans. Not because they're invincible, though they may be. Not because they're powerful, though their power exceeds our understanding. We don't challenge them because they've shown us a better way to be challenged. The chamber was silent again, but this time with understanding rather than fear. Kizari activated their final display. A quote from Dr. Mitchell's last message. The greatest victory is not in making your enemy fear you, but in making the very concept of enemy obsolete. Humanity's gift to the galaxy isn't our strength or our technology. It's our hope. Our belief that every species can be more than they are, just as we strive to be more than we were. As the council session ended, Kizari watched the representatives file out. The Varkath delegates walked alongside human scientists, discussing their latest joint projects. Centauri warriors chatted with Earth diplomats about cultural exchange programs. You know, Major Anderson said quietly to Kizari, Dr. Mitchell left one thing out of her records, something she told me just before she died. What was that? She said, the real reason no one should challenge humans isn't because of what we can do to them. It's because of what we can do for them. That's the truth I hope your report helps everyone understand. Kizari looked out at the stars through the chamber's crystal walls. Somewhere out there, another species might be preparing for war, thinking about challenging human space. They would learn, as the Varkath had learned, as all had learned. Humans weren't just another species to be fought. They were a force of change, of growth, of evolution itself. And their greatest weapon wasn't their ability to win wars. It was their capacity to make wars meaningless.